Hello again. In my last video, which was actually my very first video about landscape photography, I mentioned there that the Canon EOS R5 and the Canon 100-400 USM IS-2L lens is the perfect combination for landscape photography. And I have to say it kind of surprised me because when I got back into landscape photography, and even when I used to shoot landscapes years and years ago, it always seemed to be focused more on the wide end. Maybe small to mid telephoto, but never something with as much reach as a 100-400. But having recently switched from a Nikon outfit across to full Canon and a couple of L lenses, I've realized that this lens here is far and away the lens I use most. Now, it might have a lot to do with the environment that I'm shooting in. For the most part, I'm shooting in fairly wide open country. I live in an area with a lot of rolling hills, thousands of kangaroos, farmland, that sort of stuff. But up near my dad's place in the Victorian high country, it's heavily wooded and quite dense, and that's when small telephoto and wide angle lenses come to the fore more. But still, I am kind of surprised just how much more I enjoy shooting with this lens because of the ability to pluck out multiple subjects within a particular composition. So I can be looking out at a scene, and with this lens, I can take a relatively wide view of a number of elements in the scene, but I can also pick out, you know, a dead tree up on a hill. I can, for example, one of my favorite shots that I've done over the last few months is a tree that is peeking out behind or between two hills, two sort of hills of very similar dimensions and shapes when I was on the way back from my dad's place with my son a couple of months ago. And that was shot with this lens, and I think with a 1.4 times converter on it as well. And when you're looking at it through the viewfinder, especially if you're doing, you know, a shot that's in fairly low light, it's hard to conceive that you're going to end up with a great shot at the end of it. But when you see it on screen and you play around with your settings a little bit in Lightroom to bring out the shadow detail and that sort of stuff, you can get some incredibly remarkable landscape shots with this lens. Now, the reason why I think it's such a great lens for the RF mount is because now that the R5 and the R6, to a lesser extent, have really created an explosion in demand for the RF mount cameras because of its resolving power and its, you know, headline stats. A lot of people are upgrading to this system. And so EF mount lenses like this one and like the 16-35 are becoming quite affordable. And when you pair them with the EF2 RF mount adapter, like this one I've got here with a control ring, and I have to say that I actually find the control ring on the lenses in this quite frustrating because the last thing I need is another ring to accidentally touch and knock things out of whack. So I'm actually going to disable them on both now that I've just said that in the next day or so. But paired up with this, and even paired up with this and a 2 times converter, which I have been using with this lens, the autofocus is fast, the contrast is lovely, the colors are beautiful, the resolving power is fantastic. And if it's going to show up any flaws, it's going to come up on the R5 with its 45 megapixels. And it's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. In fact, I shot with this lens on my M6 Mark II, which is what I'm filming this video with a 1.4 extender, and shot some images of birds in our backyard. And I was astonished at the resolving power and the quality and the detail that was in those images. It was just incredible. So I think it's easy to dismiss telephoto lenses as a viable option for landscape photography, but I'm seeing more and more other landscape photographers also migrating to the longer focal lengths because it gives you so much more opportunity to pick out different elements of your scene without actually having to walk down to them and get close to them. And a lot of the time you just can't. In my case, for example, a lot of the scenes that I like to shoot are on private property, so I can't just jump over the fence and take photos up close with a wide lens. I need to shoot them from a distance. And the way they compress the perspective and they blur out the background so nicely is just lovely. I really, really like the way they behave. So if you've been wanting to get a fresh perspective on your images and see things in a different way, and photography is all about seeing what is perhaps commonplace for you, maybe even mundane, seeing it in a new way. It forces you to slow down and become more aware of your surroundings. And I can't think of a better way to do that easily than with a lens that gives you this kind of reach. I think if you give something like this a go, maybe rent it to begin with. But like I said, they're getting quite affordable now because of the explosion in the RF mount lenses. Get yourself, say, the 70 to 300L lens, or if you can stretch for it, the 100 to 400L mount lens. And as a mate of mine, Graham, said, you will never regret getting the 100 to 400. And he's absolutely right. I think I'm using this for probably 70 to 80% of my landscape shots now. And the balance of them, believe it or not, I'm shooting with the RF 24 to 105. I found that to be wide enough in most cases for the kind of shots I want to do. And if I want to go really wide, I had a 16 to 35, but found I wasn't using it at all, so I sold it. And I was tempted to get the 15 to 35 RF mount 2.8 lens, but because I've not really had the need to go wider than 24 so far, with a couple of exceptions, I just didn't think it was worth blowing a few $1,000 on another lens for just occasional use. So instead, what I did was I bought the Samyang 14 2.8, which is a beautiful lens. So I bought this instead, which is just a gorgeous lens. I mean, apart from the fact that it looks beautiful, that it's beautifully made, it's nice and solid in the hand, it's got a beautiful focus ring. Apart from that, it's a very sharp lens, and the color and the contrast that comes out of this has been fantastic. So I've used this a few times in landscape, and I tried to catch the Geminids meteor showers a little while ago, but I was actually out in the field an hour early, so they were still below the horizon. But that's a lovely lens and far less expensive than something like the 15 to 35 RF. So this is an RF mount AF lens, and it's wonderful. I won't bother telling you about prices because, as you know, they vary enormously around the world, and you can do your own research on that. But anyway, if you get a chance, try something like this. If you've got the an RF mount camera, whether it's the R or the RP, the R6 or the R5, and you don't feel like spending another, $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000 on a lens, look at some of the EF mount L lenses and just get yourself the mount adapter, the simple ring adapter here, and it's going to give you access to some incredibly good glass for a lot less than what you'll spend on the RF mount glass. You'd think I could get this back on, wouldn't you? Where the hell are you? There you are. And for a lot less money than what you'd spend on an RF lens. So hopefully that clarifies a bit better what I was suggesting in the last video. And if you haven't seen that, just it won't be hard to find, because like I said, this is only my second video. That was my first. So it won't be hard to find. If you haven't had a look at that, have a look and you'll see what I'm on about. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.